Welcome into the Fantasy Advantage. Today, I'm talking about the top 15 running backs that I have ranked for 2025. It's that time of year where everybody's kind of starting to put out those lists, and I wanted to get mine out there so I can help you win your fantasy championship coming up this year. Okay, so I'm going to get right to it. Just get right to brass tacks. I am going to keep it as simple and sweet as I can without droning on for too long so the video doesn't go on for too long. But just stick with me. I promise it's worth it. I've got a pretty good surprise at the end for the 15th ranked player that I don't think a lot of people are going to see coming. But yeah, so I'm just going to get right to it and let's get going. So number one is Bijan Robinson. I've been a firm believer in what Bijan Robinson can bring to the fantasy table ever since his college days. He's got arguably the best skill set with his size and speed and probably the whole league. He had the most forced missed tackles last year with 117, and he only sees 8 men in the box about 12% of the time because of the threat of his passing game. He's a great receiver, and they always have to be checking for that. So he has lighter boxes, which will get him to bust open into more better situations in the open field down the field, which brings me to one of my main points here. Is he only had 12 runs of 15 plus yards last year, and Gibbs and Barkley, those guys had 15 each. So there's a bit of a disparity there between him, the top three or the top two last year. And he only had one run of 30 or more, and Barkley had 10, for example. So those should have some positive regression for him this year, and I think that was quite literally the difference between him being the RB1 last year, because he was 20 points behind Gibbs and 14 points behind Saquon. So I think if you take those numbers and you change them up and kind of regress to the mean in a positive way for Bijan, that makes him the RB1. And I think it was just circumstance, just a really weird stroke of luck last year, and I believe that he will turn that around, and that will just bump him up into that RB1 position. My RB2 is Saquon Barkley. Now, he had a career year last season, and he's getting another year in the system. I think they want to try to involve him in the passing game a little bit more to just have the ball in his hands as much as possible. And obviously, they have a really great O-line. But the only reason I'm reeling him back off the RB1 is because what I was kind of mentioning earlier with Bijan is he ran for the most 60-yard touchdowns last year in NFL history with 7. And he also led the league in 15-plus yard touchdowns with 8. Now, if you took those away from the entire running back group from last year, all the running backs in fantasy, that would have left him at RB7 if you took all of those longer runs and longer running touchdowns. So I think with those probably regressing for him a little bit, that will take him down a step into that RB2 position, where I would definitely see Bijan taking over and getting that RB1 spot. Now, I'm not saying fade Saquon by any means. Obviously, it's splitting hairs. It's the top 5 or so. You're really just splitting hairs on small stuff. But yeah, I think Saquon's still just fine. I think Bijan takes that next step this year, and Saquon gets down to RB2. Now, leading into my next guy here, kind of the same idea with the regression. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. The prophecies came true. Everyone loved Jahmyr, knew it was coming, and he was the PPR RB1 in fantasy last year. Now, the only reason that I don't have him repeating is losing Ragnow on the O-line and some pesky regression. Now, Ragnow isn't going to really kill him. I think it's more of a Montgomery thing than it is for Gibbs, because Gibbs does a little bit more of the zone running and some of that pass catching stuff. So it won't crush him. As a whole for the O-line, I think it can be a little damaging, but I don't think it will obliterate them. A lot of people are overreacting to this and thinking the Lions are screwed now, but I don't agree with that. I think they'll still be fine. but I do think you can kind of, there will be a little bit of a change on the offense because of it. And on top of all of that, no RB has repeated at 1 in 12 plus years. And also Jahmyr Gibbs's RB1 season was the lowest since JT's, the lowest scoring since Jonathan Taylor's, like in 2021, I believe. And before that, it was like a long time before it was that low. So I do think that a couple other guys will probably surpass him in points, not by some massive margins, but again, splitting hairs here. But I do want to point out something else with Gibbs is his best stretch of the whole season last year by far was the 4 games that Monty missed. So the splits with Monty on the field, Gibbs was averaging about 18.2 points per game, and then when he wasn't on the field, it was 31.5. That's a pretty big difference. I think if it wasn't for those, he's probably RB3, maybe 4 last year, and that's kind of where I see him ending up this year. I'm not saying, again, same thing. I'm not saying fade him either. I'm just saying his ceiling has a slight cap coming into this year, and when you're splitting hairs like this is where he lands for me. Now, this next guy is going to be slightly controversial, I think. Nothing really major, but it's CMC. I understand he's got the injury issues, and for me, it's like he either plays the whole season and is RB1 and 2, or he gets hurt and he's out for just about the whole season. There's kind of no in between for him, but I want to point out that the 2 healthy years in San Francisco that he's had so far have been pretty insane. He's been the RB1 and the RB2 in fantasy those years, and except until he got hurt last year. And he had an 88% and 76% impact rating, which is something that I've created, which is scoring 14 plus points every week. And how many weeks you do that is your percentage. And he's like the best at it. So he being healthy is going to basically win you your league. It's just very risky. And that's what's baked into this ranking. But if he does play like at least 15 games, you're probably looking at the RB1 or 2. It's just, you never know for sure with him, and it's a little nerve-wracking. But not much else to say about CMC. If he's on the field, he's an elite weapon. So I think getting him in the second round is probably just it's a steal. You can start like at the turn of the first round, you can grab an elite wide receiver and then get him, and if he's on the field, odds are you're probably running for a championship. So yeah, you gotta draft him with like a little bit of that scary risk factor, but I think you'll be fine as long as he plays every game, and you'll win your league. Now, the number 5 spot, I was kind of at a toss-up with the 5 and 6, but I just can't drop this guy down below this position, and I even feel like I might be a spot or 2 low on him, and it's Derrick Henry. He's the ultimate beast. I mean, what can you say about him? He's the physical specimen we probably won't ever see again, and I don't think he's going to retire until he just decides, like, I'm done playing football. I don't want to play anymore. He's such a freak, man. He has insane burst still. He has insane power, has great vision. He's 31 years old and just ran for 1,921 yards. I mean, there's probably no better pure runner in the league than he is today. And it might be, we might not see one like him for a very long time. The only thing that lowers him out of the top 3 to 4 for most people, and what most people will tell you, is, you know, the lack of receiving work. And Lamar does run the ball often, and that takes it away from Henry's overall ceiling. Now, he did see 8 defenders in the box 33% of the time, which is the most in like the starters for the league, and last year. These were next gen stats, which is really crazy, and he was still putting up these numbers. So if he even loses like a handful of those looks this year, he could propel up into maybe even into the top 3. And another year in this offensive system with Baltimore, it might still, like, he might score more touchdowns this year, and it could send him up into like that top 3. Just in PPR, it's tough when he doesn't have a lot of receiving work. And you also don't have to worry about his health. I mean, one season he missed half the games, and that's it. He's an insane freak athlete that we'll probably never see again. He's top 5 until he retires from me. Or proves that he can't do it anymore. I'll never put him outside of my top 5. Now, number 6, this is the guy that I was thinking about putting top 5, as crazy as it might seem, but it was Ashton Gianti. Now, a rookie running back in the top 10. I know it feels kind of weird to do a lot, but it happens, I think, almost every year. There's always a rookie running back that has some sort of impact on fantasy and is at least top 10. Gianti is probably one of the most insane prospects that we've ever seen coming out of college football as a running back, and I think he hits the ground running. It's hard to argue with his pedigree, and he went to the perfect situation. And I do think that with Geno Smith being there, it's gonna open up a lot of opportunities for him and seeing lighter boxes and getting plenty of like open space to work with in the field. A good offense that complements each other helps running backs more than anything. Now, I know they probably won't win as many games as people like for running backs, but he's going to be fed the ball so much being a top 6 draft pick. And Pete Carroll knows how he likes to use his running backs, like a la beast mode. I think he's going to be beast mode 2.0. And all of his vision and how he breaks tackles like he's just flicking a fly off his shoulder, and he can make guys miss. And he's got the power, he's got the elusiveness. I mean, there's not a lot he can't do. And I think week in and week out, he's going to churn out fantasy points. And if he even ended up, honestly, as the RB1 in fantasy this year, I wouldn't be shocked. I think that's in the realm of possibility for Gianti. So, yeah, you can get him, I believe, also in the 2nd round. So, like, again, an elite guy that can carry your team and potentially even win the league for you. Yeah, that's who I like here. 6 feels just right for Gianti. Now, number 7, this is a dude who I did like a lot. I just never pulled the trigger on drafting him at any point. And I know he was a home run for people who picked him up off waivers last year, and a few people in Dynasty who, whoever got him in like that 4th round of fantasy, of the rookie drafts. It's Bucky Irving. He had a seemingly out of nowhere rookie season, just exploded onto the scene. There were some people who did like him out there, but no one, I think, expected what happened. He was a good prospect. He wasn't a bad prospect or anything, but being behind White, I thought that at best he'd see maybe a 50-50 split, and he probably wouldn't be in the passing game a lot, but he was actually very involved. It took till about the back half of the season for him to get enough of a snap share to really start pumping out numbers, but when he got the opportunities, he ran away with them. According to the Next Gen Stats, he had the 8th most rushing yards over expected last year with 186, which is about 0.94 yards over expected, which was also 6th in the league. He had a 0.29 avoided tackles per rush attempt and a 0.96 per route run missed tackles forced, which were both number 1 in the league last year for running backs. On top of that, he led the league in yards in contact per attempt, which was 4 yards. Yards after contact, which was 4 yards. as well as 3.4% of his carries going for 30 plus. That's also league leading. Now, there's potential for a little regression, and I do think it's, you'll see, I think, him getting points a little bit differently. I do believe Rachaad White's going to still be involved in some of the passing game and like certain packages. So there is a cap to him, and that's why I think number 7 fits him like just about perfect for me, because I don't think he'll get to that like top 3 to top 5 position as long as health isn't an issue for the top guys. But there's no way I'm putting him lower than like 7 and 8, and it was kind of a mix up between these, like, from 6 to 8. It was a bit of a toss up for me, but this is where I feel the most comfortable putting Bucky, and I think he ends up there this year. The next guy, I feel like I could actually put him a little lower, but when I was going through and kind of looking at stats and doing my work on this, I didn't feel comfortable putting him lower. And it's De'Von Achane. I never know how exactly it's pronounced, but I like De'Von Achane, so that's what I go with. Now, the splits with Tua on and off the field were like insanely huge. With Tua on the field, he was getting 22.5 points a game. With him off the field, it was 8.7. I mean, it's drastic. Now, they brought in Alexander Madison and they drafted Ollie Gordon, who are kind of like heavier thumper type of backs, which is going to be for that short yardage stuff. It's going to take over, because last year he ran the ball 5 times when they needed 1 yard to score, and he netted a -3 yards off of those attempts, and he only scored 1 time. They need to have like those thumpers, and I think he's going to lose all of those touches now, because he also ran it 14 times when they needed 5 yards to score, and he only scored 3 times, which is a very bad percentage of scoring there. And yeah, I think that's 4 touchdowns that you can take away from him. And I think tempering expectations for him this year is definitely something you have to pay attention to, because as good as he is, and I wasn't a believer in him when he came into the league, and I was dead wrong, because he's doing awesome. And between the 20s, he's still going to be great. He's still going to have some big plays. He's going to have explosive plays. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to score. But I think the biggest question is Tua and his health. As long as Tua's on the field, this is an easy top 8, potentially top 5. But with him off the field, it's obviously a massive difference in how the offense works and how De'Von Achane gets involved. So I'm not confident in Tua staying healthy, so I cannot put him higher than this. And like, the more I think about it, I keep thinking maybe I should drop him back a spot or 2, but I try not to focus too much on health, so I locked him in at 8, and I think that's a good spot for him. Number 9, this is a guy that keeps getting disrespected, like insanely disrespected, and keeps just proving everybody wrong every year, and it's Alvin Kamara. It's getting crazy to me that people keep fading him so far. His ADP is currently 45 at running back 16. 16 is the worst finish he's ever had, and that was in 2022, in that kind of like weird year where it felt like I don't know, it was really weird. He had some good games, but then he had like no-show games, and I think he missed a few, and it was just really strange. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that. Like, that's his absolute lowest. Yeah, he can be your RB1 on the team and be top 10, and you're getting him in like the 5th round, and you're stacking so much talent before that this could really build such a strong team. I hate talking about him too much, because I don't want the ADP to change. I want him back there, because I'm going to buy him there every single damn time, because he's like, he's one of the best values in fantasy, I think, this year in drafts. It's crazy to me that he's going this late. He's going behind Ken Walker. He's never had a better season than Kamara ever. His best year was RB18, and that was back in 2022. And Kamara was RB11 2 years ago, only playing 13 games. RB9 last year through 14 games. And he's at 9 because he's probably going to miss a couple games. It's kind of his thing. He usually misses one or two, but he's getting 220 rush attempts and 65 receptions every year, whether roughly every year, even through the games that, or the years that he misses some time. So he's getting the volume, and he's one of the most consistently like pass involved running backs. He was the 4th most efficient running back last year, according to Next Gen, and he was top 10 in percentage of seeing 8 men in the box at 25%, which means he was doing that with a lot of looks of stacked boxes. So if they probably will be about the same this year. I know the offense is questionable, but I think New Orleans offense is going to be like sneakily a little bit better than people expect. I know they're expecting them to be terrible, but I think they're going to be a little better than people think they were going to, and it leads me to believe that Kamara's season will be just fine. He's minimum top 10, and you're getting him at RB16. Yeah, there's no other option there for me in that round. I'm taking him there. Oh yeah, and his O-line was ranked top 10 in run blocking last year, so there's that. I mean, that's with the interior of them being injured throughout most of the year. So I think that should boost him even more with them all coming back and being healthy. And you can draft Kamara, like absolutely smash the draft button on him when it's coming around to his ADP. Now, the next guy I know some people are unsure of, and I kind of am too, and that's why he's at 10, because like he consistently finishes around the 7 RB, the 7th running back, and it's Kyren Williams. I feel like I'm never really sure what to do or exactly how to feel about him, but he just keeps putting out fantasy points. It just feels really weird. Like it feels like almost hollow, like it's some luck or something. And I don't know how, like I can't put my finger on it. It just feels that way. And I think this might be the year where things finally kind of regress for him. If you're looking at fantasy points per game from rushing only, he was getting 14. He averages about 14, which is number 1 in the league over the last 2 years. He also ranks top 5 on a per game basis in rushing yards at 87.3. And yards after contact with 57.9. Oh, and rushing touchdowns per attempt at 0.93. Oh, and rushing yards, or rushing avoided tackles at 3.8, and PPR fantasy points at 18.8, which is all really great. But, well, it's really great. This is why he has to be in the top 10, because these are all numbers that prove, consistency and that he does it a lot. But what makes me put him at 10 and not further up inside the top 10 is last year his points per game dropped from 23.1 to 17, and his rushing grade went from 90.6 to 74. That's a pretty big drop, and I feel like McVay also keeps drafting these like very strong prospect running backs, and this is the year that I think they start chipping into his workload. Corum and what was the other guy's name there? Jarquiz. Yeah, those guys I think are going to start getting some work, and I do also believe that they want Kyren to be healthy in the late season in the playoffs, and they're going to try to at probably like second half of the season they'll start to lighten his load a little bit, and they'll start putting in these guys a little bit more, especially Blake Corum. I think Blake Corum's going to start getting some work, and that's going to change his outcome this season. And he also fell into a lot of touchdowns, just sort of fell into the end zone. And I do believe that's going to start finally regressing a little bit, and they're going to start putting in some of those bigger guys a little more often. So, yeah, I do think you have to kind of temper expectations with Kyren this year. I keep saying Kyren. I don't know why I keep saying Kyren. All right. So at number 11, this one I feel like I can't put him lower, but it also makes me feel weird. It's Jonathan Taylor. I think what keeps him out of the top 10 mostly is, the guy misses an average of like 5 games a year. The only year he hadn't, he was the RB1, but again, like I was talking about with Gibbs, he had at the time, that was the lowest RB1 season in fantasy. And you're going to plan on him missing games. Like I said, he averages about 5 a year. And he misses a lot of early season stuff. And he's absolute hammer in playoff time. That's why I think there's a part of me that like you can get him at a pretty decent deal right now, like a decent price. And I do think if you get him, he misses a couple games, a handful of games kind of like through the early mid-season area, but you have a team that's contending and you get into the playoffs, he's going to carry you there. Like I looked this up a few days ago, and of course now, it's maybe I'll put a graphic up here somewhere, but he averaged like 22 points or something like that around like the fantasy playoffs almost every year. So you get him with a little bit of a risk, and if you can get some extra running back depth, I think he's healthy for the playoff season, the playoff time of year, and he'll put your team on his back and he'll help you win your fantasy championship. So really, that's kind of what keeps him up here. And if he plays all the games, he's obviously top 10. Like he's very obviously top 10. So I think 11 kind of averages is like kind of in the middle of like his potential, and like very easily like met potential. And if like injuries happen and stuff, it's kind of right in the middle of where I think he can finish. So yeah, buy him if you truly believe he can stay healthy this year. If not, then if you don't get him, I don't think you have to be like super scared, but he's just too good in that playoff time, man. It's tough to pass up on Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, 11's where I've got him. It's the place that I like him the most, so that's my guy there. Now at 12, this one's gonna get a couple people pretty hot, and because you haven't seen him on the list, you might be able to guess who this is. And it's Josh Jacobs. Now, I'm not hating on him. I think a lot of people will take this as me hating on him, putting him down this far. I just don't really like him more than the guys above him as a whole, like for a whole season's purpose here. According to PFF last year, he was 36 out of 46 running backs who qualify in efficiency, which in an efficiency grade, it's PFF's efficiency grade. And that's with him seeing 8 or more defenders in the box, 23rd, the 23rd like least, which is about 20%. He was getting boosted, I think, by his touchdowns, and I definitely believe those regress a little bit. He also only had about a 62.5% snap share last year, and that was without Marshawn Lloyd being healthy and playing. And if Lloyd comes in and flashes and takes some of those plays away from him, and Emmanuel Wilson, who when given opportunities actually ran really well, I think he sticks around that snap percentage. It may even go down, and that's definitely going to pull back some of his points. And again, the touchdown regression, I think, will be one of the biggest points that he loses points. I am stuttering. We're getting far into the video. It's getting hard to talk, but yeah. Now he wasn't used in the passing game as much as most of the like higher up guys. He had about 43 targets and 36 catches. And he ain't no Derrick Henry. Like, he's not going to be able to make up for it the same way that Henry does. So, this is just where I see him now. If he finished higher, like, I'm not going to be shocked. I just feel like with the outcome potential of all the other guys on this list, this is where I feel the most comfortable putting him. but he should have close to the same overall production. Again, I think his touchdowns regress, and he loses some snaps to like Lloyd and Wilson. So yeah, 12 is where I got him. If you disagree, I completely understand, but I don't feel right putting him higher. Now at 13, I got a guy who I think might be semi-surprising, but he shouldn't be. This guy is great on the field every year, and it's James Conner. He finished RB11 last year, and right now he's being drafted as RB21 in the 6th round. The 6th round, man. You can get him at your RB2 there and have he has a really great floor and could have a top 10 ceiling. So this is the kind of draft picks that I talk about. Like, this is the kind of stuff that wins you leagues, is getting these guys that people are sort of like just dismissing and not thinking much of. I know that it feels kind of weird that he was RB11, and I also think it's because of the way that he gets it. It's really like gritty, not flashy, like plays that he makes, and it doesn't feel like he's like really like the speedsters and stuff. He's more of a power guy, but he averages 15 carries a game and about 4 targets, which was slept on. I actually didn't realize that. He gets about 4 targets a game. So he gets involved in the passing game, and that, like I was just saying, his floor is pretty safe. And if you're getting him in the 6th round as an RB2, I mean, you're building a structure of a pretty good team with him there. He saw 8+ defenders in the box, the 6th most in the league last year at 25%, and still was RB11, because he's when he gets the ball, he's really efficient. He had 110 yards over expected last year, with about 0.48 expected per carry, over expected per carry, and he also ranked 2nd over the last 2 seasons in avoided tackles per rush per game at 4.5, with about a 0.297 per rush per game. It's about 4.5. And 3.6 yards after contact. Now, the team got a whole lot better, I think, this year. And when that happens, that makes running backs better. I think the defense will be better. The offense will be on the field a little more. Kyler Murray, if he can, get back into his old ways, like, I do think that opens up the field a bit more for Conner. And I can see him sticking around this like 13 area, and potentially even hitting up into the top 10. He's the perfect RB2 for your team. Draft him with confidence and watch yourself win some serious weeks, man. 14 is another one I feel like I might get a little flack for, because last year from week 8 on, he got the lead in week 8 in the backfield, but week 9 to 17, he played at least 80% of his team's offensive snaps. And he finished as the RB10 because of just that back half of the year. And it's Chase Brown. There's a lot of reason to feel good about him. I mean, everything he did was really great last year. He averaged 20.6 fantasy points a game during that whole stretch in the back half of the year, which was 3rd most among running backs. And he was averaging about 5.5 targets a game, with one game having 11. Now, the reason that I have him at 14 is because I don't think the Bengals offense as a whole is going to do quite what they did last year. I think that it's going to regress because of the way things went. They were coming from behind a lot, and Burrow dings that ball a lot out into the back, like to his receivers, which he really likes to do. He wants to push the ball out. He wants to throw to his receivers like far as much as he can. And in the area of the year that Chase Brown had a lot of success, it's when they were playing more competitive games, didn't have to come back from behind so much, so they were able to run the ball a little more. And with the defensive stuff going on, I don't think, with Hendrickson and Stewart and all this stuff that's happening, I don't know how good their defense is going to be again. So I do feel like they might have to play from behind a lot, and that's going to take away from a lot of his rushing attempts. And their O-line last year was ranked 28th in run blocking, and they didn't really make any big changes to that this year. So I do think, that new hotness, him just kind of blowing up onto the scene out of nowhere, sort of out of nowhere, but I think that changed this year and things regress a little bit for him. So if that's all, with all of that, I don't think putting him above 14 is just feels good to me. So this is where I like him. Again, he can always finish higher, but this is where I see him finishing and where I like him this year. Now, at 15, this is the one that I think I'm going to catch the most heat for. It's somebody that I believe in, and if you know me and you follow my Twitter, you know that this guy is someone that I love coming into the 2025 season. It is a rookie, and what I like to say the most about this guy is he's an absolute dog, dude. This guy is the dog. He is, open up your Webster's dictionary, take a look, go to dog, and it's Cam Skattebo. I know this one's going to be controversial, but I would need to be heard out on this, okay? Skattebo ran for 1,711 yards and 21 touchdowns in his final season at ASU. And he didn't just do this against small schools. Actually, I looked at the games, and a lot of his games that he did, like his best games, were against more competitive teams, were against like the ranked teams and like the bigger schools. So it's not like he was just stomping all over small schools. Something that people were kind of saying about Gianti, he had like a cupcake, whatever, but Gianti was awesome. And then, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we're talking about Cam here. So the playoff game against the Longhorns is one that I'd like to point out. He was putting the team on his back. I mean, this guy was willing to die on that field for them, which is why he's a fucking dog, man. Like, he wanted to be on that field more than, he looked like he was going to die at the end of the game. He was so gassed. But yeah, like, that's the kind of guy that I like in a backfield, and I think is like, he wants to be on the field. He wants to like break tackles, which, by the way, he broke or evaded 110 tackles last year, which was only second to Ashton Gianti. He like did bowl those dudes off, like, just ran through them. But if you actually watch his reps, which I did, I watched every single one of them from his senior year, it's his contact balance, man. I don't know if there's another player that I can think of who has contact balance like him. He gets slammed from the side and just contorts his body in weird ways and stays on his field and just keeps churning. Like, his legs are always moving, and he's so hard to bring down. It takes like entire teams to get him on the ground. I know the knock on him is his top end speed. He ran like a 4.67, something like that, 40-yard dash. But, David Montgomery had almost the exact same 40-yard dash, and he's had a really great year. Something that I didn't know is the Giants had a bottom 10 O-line last year, and PFF pointed this out, that Cam, his best runs were like non-perfect blocked plays. Like, when he's got to kind of do his own thing, he actually makes things happen and does it very well. So it's like the perfect piece, like a little puzzle piece, just sticking into this Giants offense. I agree he won't like get a lot of like 60 plus yard touchdowns, those big long touchdowns, but he's going to chunk after chunk after chunk of yards, like 10, 15, 20 yards at a time, just breaking tackles, he has good vision. Like, he's gonna just, every time he touches the ball, you're gonna see another point for you in fantasy. And on the goal line and in the red zone, he's gonna be a freaking beast in there. I think that's where they're really gonna utilize him a lot, is in that like red zone area. And at worst, I see him only splitting carries with Tyrone Tracy. So at least to start. And if he takes over and gets the lion's share, this dude is to the moon, man. To the moon. So getting him, especially because he's in the 10th round, you can draft him in the 10th round, and having a guy like this potentially being a moonshot for you could win a lot of people some championships this year. And it's why I'm in on him at 15. And I mean, I could even see him going at 10. This is somebody that, like, I'm giving you my word, I don't think you're disappointed if you draft Cam Skattebo this year. Excuse me. So that's my top 15. I wanted to throw in a couple honorable mentions, or like if some injuries happen, guys that I could see popping into the top 15. Just really quick. I know this video has already gone pretty long, so I just want to shoot out. So let's see, who was it here? James Cook, and then the trio of rookies: Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson. They all went to like really good situations. They're gonna at least have Caleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins have the start. And I think Henderson's at worst is splitting, and he's going to get a lot of passing work. So they went into good situations where I think they can thrive and could easily get into this top 15 as well. And Tony Pollard is the last guy on that list, because Tony Pollard is actually really good, and he, in the right offense, he gets, he has top 10 season. And with the Titans having 0 pass game last year, he couldn't get into the open field and do what he does best. But if Cam Ward comes in and he brings that whole passing offense up, I think that changes the way that the defenses are looking at that offense, and it opens things up for Tony to get himself back into like a good fantasy position. He's someone that I wouldn't mind taking, later in drafts. So that's my list. I'd love to hear from you guys and tell me what you agree on, what you disagree on. Critique me in this as a whole. I'm learning. I'm doing this. I'm trying to get somewhere with this. If you leave a like, that would be awesome, and just leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Tell me I suck. Tell me my list is wrong. Tell me you agree with it. Who you think should be RB1. Who else? I'd really like to hear what you who you think would get up into this list. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm a massive football fan. My favorite thing to do ever is talk football. I could do it all day. I'm gonna put my Twitter down in the description. Go follow me on there, and let's talk football, man. That's what I'm here for, on top of helping you win your leagues. That's what I want to do. I want you guys to win, man. I want you to win. Coming up next is going to be my wide receiver rankings. That's my next video. So yeah, leave a like, subscribe so you can see the next one come out, and we can go over those ones as well, go over the receivers as well. And yeah, thank you for sticking it out, man. It really does mean a lot to me. Anybody who comes in here and watches, leaves a like, subscribes, whatever it is, it makes me feel like it's for something. So thank you. I appreciate you if you watch this video and have some kind of interaction with me, even if you don't, just stuck around and watch the video. So I'm droning on and on. I've talked so much, my mouth is getting dry. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate everybody. Love football. Let's talk. Have a good rest of your day.